Talking about emergent language and soft skills this evening. I'm joined by my colleague Ruth Murren, and
Hi,
uh,
everybody. Nice to see so many of you here today.
look, we'll get going. The chat is open, and we finally got it so that everyone can see everyone else's messages, so that's good. If you've got any comments, put them in the chat there, and we'll take note of them. Obviously, I put in the Sophia code as well, so if you need to use that platform, you'll find it there. Okay. Everyone will receive a certificate of attendance and a webinar handout in the next few days. If you don't receive it, or if you haven't received ones in the past, drop me an email at Formazione, tell me which one you're missing, and I'll get that out to you very soon. The handout will contain all the important information from this webinar. So the slides, the information from the slides will be on the webinar handout that you'll receive in the next few days. Okay. As an introduction, I just thought we'd talk a little bit about the state of English in the world. I mean, as everyone I'm sure attending this webinar knows, it is still, I guess, ironically, the lingua franca of the world. Over 85% of international organizations, including companies and multinational corporations, use English as their working language. 94% of EU schools teach English as a foreign language, of which I'm sure we have many of the teachers who do that in our audience this evening. And more than 60% of all web content is in English, and approximately 25% of the world's population can understand or communicate in English at some level. So I guess it's good news in those statistics for English as a global language, but obviously we can't rest on our laurels, and so we need to keep keeping updating our methods, and that's what these webinars are all about. Okay. Obviously, these methods of instructions will change due to new technology, new methods, and obviously students' changing needs. Okay. I'll hand over to Ruth, who's going to tell us a few objectives.
So, the objectives of today are that by the end of this session, we hope that you will be better able to anticipate upcoming trends in English language teaching and learning, overcome potential challenges in English language teaching, develop teaching skills that cannot be replaced by AI, yet by focusing on emergent language in the classroom and reacting to real students' needs. Help students develop necessary life and work skills in English, and create a classroom environment that is conducive to learning and contributes to effective communication, problem solving, and classroom management.
Okay, so how do we make our lessons more adaptive? One way that TEL can improve is by becoming more adaptive to the students' needs. So rather than a one size fits all approach, we can deal with the spontaneous needs of our students during the course or the lessons even themselves. So, this is making changes to the course or making changes to the lesson as it happens. Okay. So two key concepts uh, of this are in the title of our webinar today is emergent language. Okay, so what is that? It is, I guess, a definition could be unplanned language that arises naturally during class discussions. So not the sort of thing that you have up on the board or the something that they're reading as a text or prompts that you have. Is sort of things that you discover or you elicit from the students as they're going on. So, and this is the sort of thing that really shows that they're becoming independent, I guess. Okay. And we have some soft skills. And now this is by no means all of the soft skills, but some top 10 we might rate are communication, obviously. We're talking about English language, but things like self-motivation, leadership, responsibility, teamwork, problem solving, decisiveness, ability to work under pressure and time management, flexibility and negotiation and conflict resolution. So these sort of things are things that you know we want them to become independent learners and to become, I guess, better citizens in a way, I guess. But obviously, they're learning this in other subjects, but being able to do it directly in English is always a great thing as well.
I think the important thing about those two elements that we're touching upon today, Josh, the fact that they're authentic. Okay, these are real life transferable situations. So the top skills, well, the skills we're going to focus on today, they develop real life skills that students will need, and they learn them as well as they do in their own language. They learn them in English. And also emergent language is student-centered. Let's talk about emergent language a little bit more. So what he said, as Josh explained, is the language that emerges in the classroom, okay? It is not planned, it is unplanned, and it arises spontaneously during students' interactions in the language classroom. So when students are talking, you set up a task, they start talking to each other, or they even talk to you, or as Josh mentioned earlier, you elicit something from them. There is language that you didn't account for, language that appears there. And, it displays errors or communicative breakdowns among students. Sometimes you can see that. And it also displays outstanding language and attempts that the students are trying, okay? So, the important thing about emergent language is that basically it is a teaching opportunity. I think is the next point, Josh. It
Sorry.
provides an excellent teaching and learning opportunity. Why? Because it's language that they have produced, they have attempted, it's something they're interested in, they want to communicate something. So even if it's an error or outstanding language, it's in their interest, it comes from them. So it is not something that we have in our lesson plan and we want to put on them. It's something that they show interest for. And that obviously exploits, gives benefits to exploit what occurs naturally in that language. What it means is that interactions are meaning focused. They are trying to convey some meaning. They're trying to get their message across. And if they are trying something that they have a purpose for, they find meaningful, it's authentic, then it's more memorable. When we deal with the language that they're producing naturally, students feel heard and appreciated. It's not just about the book. It's not just about the aim. It's not about the lesson. It's about what they are doing. It's student-centered. And it obviously enables learners to experiment and express their own meanings and find and explore their own voice to grow their voice in English. They need to try. We've been repeatedly saying this. We want to foster that culture of mistakes are welcome. Please do try. Please practice. Okay.
And so one thing that you can do, and again, emergent language, it's in the term, it sort of should emerge in many times naturally. But there are some things that you can do to encourage it. So, when we talk about emergent language, it is unplanned, but just because we don't know what the emergent language will be doesn't mean that we can't provide situations to encourage this, to give situations where students sort of need to depend on this, and maybe without realizing it, we'll need to come up with this sort of language. One game that I've played is Back to the Board. And this is a fun, easy activity to set up. So it really requires very little or no preparation. Okay. Usually good at the end of a lesson when you've got students already having spoken, already, let's say warmed up, maybe. Okay. Or maybe you're testing the sort of language that's come through the lesson or the course so far. Have two students sit with their back to the board, hence the name. Okay. So the board would be behind them, so they're not looking at it. Okay. Surrounded by their classmates who are facing the board, so where they normally sit. Okay. Write a word or a phrase behind the student on the board. Okay? Obviously, for a lower level, it might just be a word or a short expression, whereas for higher levels, you can even have a full sentence. And the students facing the board have to describe the word or phrase to their teammate. So you might see this as a little bit like the game Taboo. Okay. But it's a little bit different in this sense. The winning team in this case, you could have teams, is the first student to successfully say the word or phrase that is on the board. So again, you have two students there, that they're both trying to get that from all the people. So again, I guess it can be like a few of these other games that you have, categories, things like that. Okay. The words or phrases that you use should all include emergent language from the lesson. So again, try to put the thing that you write on the board can be something that you've dealt with in the lesson or in the course so far, and then the students are using other words that they know already, that they've picked up, that they've you know they have to avoid what's on the board there. So it can be a nice game to play. And as you see, as we always try to do in these sort of webinars, the games should be sort of low setup, easy to do. Okay. Um, I'll hand over to Ruth here, who's going to talk about dealing with emergent language.
When we are trying to deal with emergent language, there are some challenges that we may face, okay? And one of them is that it basically requires teachers to deviate from the lesson plan. And sometimes this could be quite daunting. And my recommendation is always feel free to deviate from your lesson plan. Okay, we create lesson plans and we always have a plan because we need to create structured lessons, obviously, and we have our aims. But if engaging new language emerges and your students show genuine interest and it's not stopping you completely from meeting your aims, go for it. Please address it because that is a good, valuable learning and teaching moment. Of course, avoid unstructured lessons. Okay, it's not good to get sidetracked too often, but it is good to put the lead on them to make sure that your students feel acknowledged and use that meaningful language. The other thing is please don't cover your boards in new language. Okay. Sometimes when we hear that new language and we want to take care of it and address it, we're just covering the board. Be selective. Less is more. So if you hear repeated language that is emergent, that you find useful for your aims, for your lesson, react to what's happening in the classroom and then just write down some words on the board. Put them there, but not all of it. Another challenge is that sometimes when we want to react to what's truly happening in the classroom, we need to think of a definition, a context, examples right there on the spot. Okay, thinking on our feet takes a little bit of time. And sometimes it's not that easy because even if you actually use the emergent language, you're not giving the students the opportunity to use it, you're not providing a good game, you're not doing things for them to remember it. So you don't have to address it right there and then. You can actually make a note of it and then prepare an activity for the next day, the next lesson to explain it better and to help your students use that language a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. I think when we're talking about being reactive, we don't necessarily have to mean in real time, although that can be great as well. But being able to do it, to react to the lesson, prepare something based on what you found for the next lesson is fine too. So let's have a look at these sort of soft skills, okay, and how they come towards social cultural competence. Okay. So most important skills to succeed professionally are things like problem solving, okay, communication skills, time management, public speaking, empathy, negotiation. Okay. So these sort of things, again, particularly things like public speaking, obviously, it's not something that comes natural to a lot of people, but there's a key task that you could assign people in your English classes so that, while they might be a bit more confident in their native language, they need to build up this confidence in English too, particularly because that is probably the language that they can talk to more people in the future in terms of international business, things like that, in their professional work. Okay. But again, communication skills, problem solving, they all sort of come in together. Okay. And then this social and emotional learning, so it reinforces the openness, okay, and as a result, the flexibility. So these key competencies are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision making. Okay, so these are sort of things that that they can learn and again become more effective communicators, more effective use of their English. So that we're developing them as people, not just as speakers of English. Okay. And we can prepare students to engage with the global community in meaningful ways to prepare them for life in English after school. Okay. So this sort of communicative approach sort of ties in quite well with tasks, a method that we obviously talk a lot about in these webinars, and it's not a coincidence that we talk a lot about it because our tasks are based on these, our textbooks that we use in MLA. Task-based learning trains these sort of soft skills as teamwork, putting students together to work on a task, critical thinking, getting the creativity and see if there's a simple solution to these things, and awareness of yourself and the world around us. So, talking about many different topics. We in MLA, we have different tasks, we have different themes for each pair of lessons in our centres. And so they talk about different tasks so that not only we're covering a lot of different vocabulary, but we're getting the students to sort of see how they can tackle different things, different unfamiliar and familiar topics. Okay. And it involves practical speaking in meaningful and authentic situations. So, they're practicing their grammar, okay, but they're also developing active listening skills, turn taking. Obviously, we talked recently about Cambridge exams, and in the speaking exams, turn taking is a very important thing. It's something that often students don't get a lot of practice with in English unless they're speaking not just to the teacher but to their classmates. Negotiation, decision making, and group work in order to collaborate effectively with others. Okay. Um, I'll hand over to Ruth, who's going to have a look at these practical activities here in one of our task time books. Don't know if I can hear you, Ruth. You there? I Are you there, Ruth? Sorry, I'll
Can you hear me?
now I can. Good.
Okay, lovely. Okay. It's just that they were saying that they couldn't hear me properly. So I changed the microphone, but it didn't work. I just hope you can hear
I
me.
can hear you clearly, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, they couldn't for some reason, so they put it on the chat. So let's talk about some practical activities. Can you just move one dot, please, Josh?
I beg your pardon, sorry.
No worries. Okay, so let's look at these. This comes from our books, okay, our task time books. And
Well,
which soft skills can you identify here? Let's put one as an example, of course, Josh. So, for example, problem solving. This is an activity, is a task they have to complete, okay? And they have to choose one of the problems, presentation, the world of 2050. So they have to choose one problem that we have and how we're going to tackle it. Okay. So, they can choose pollution, for example. What can we do to solve it? And they have to do that together. And they have limited time to do this. Okay, so they're going to have to learn to manage their time and come up with ideas. Any other skills you can identify? Let's move on to the next, Josh. Negotiation, collaboration, and teamwork. Of course, they might have similar opinions, different opinions. They might think that one solution comes first, the other one comes later. They have to put them in order, priority. So they're going to have to negotiate and collaborate. And there is some decision making involved in that as well. Now, if they want to tackle one of these problems that are quite big and very authentic and meaningful, they need to be creative, and that's what we expect from our young generations as well. They need to develop their critical thinking skills and come up with solutions that we can all embrace as a society. And as I said, decision making, social awareness, I mean, it speaks on its own here. Okay, and public speaking and presentation skills. Because once they finish doing these tasks, they're going to have to present it to others and defend it. They're going to have to actually say why their ideas would be more suitable than the others. And they're going to have to do this all together. So this is a perfect practice for the real world. How many of us have to actually do these presentations? For example, what we're doing here, Josh and myself, or when they get into business, when they have to actually attend an interview, do an interview for a job or for a place at a university. They're going to have to sell themselves. They're going to have to develop these soft skills. Okay, challenges again. So one of the challenges with teaching soft skills would be that some students may be really shy because they have not been encouraged to think critically. I'm sure some of you already experience this with younger students because when they're very young, they're not so used to it. But this is an opportunity to train them. So you can actually overcome this challenge by asking them to play teacher a little bit. Can you move forward, please, Josh? You can give them part of your role as a teacher and you can make them responsible for the classroom tasks. And they can observe others while they're doing this. They can check the use of new vocabulary, focus on errors in the language that you're focusing on, and then by this, they will learn how this is done. Now, common problem, some students may be more proactive and then others not so much, and they try to get out of it. So some of them will do more tasks than others. Please do assign them a role. Assign specific roles to students and monitor that everyone is working. Okay, so you're going to have to think of the ideas, you're going to have to do the research, you have to prepare the presentation. So everybody is working equally.
Yeah, I think it's a really important point that sometimes we have a task we want done, but unless we actually tell them, exactly what role they need to do, then sometimes, again, it's a task, it's a thing that we all find problems with, that unless we know where to start and what our role is, a big task can sort of be overwhelming.
Absolutely. And the other challenge is that monitoring group work and dealing with monolingual classes where all students share the same mother tongue, then that becomes really challenging. And for this, we've got an excellent tip we want to give you because we did a webinar very recently about this, where we provide tips on how to encourage our learners to use English only. Check out our webinars, they're available on our YouTube channel. Josh, how
I've
can they
put
find
a
our YouTube channel?
In the handout that you'll receive in the next few days, there is a link to our YouTube channel. But if you want to get to it straight away, right after the webinar, then you can always just go to YouTube and look for MLA World, and it should come up, the Teachers Refresher Webinars series. But the playlist will be in the handout, and this webinar will be uploaded soon, and all the webinars we've done previously. So even if you've had to miss some, or you've just learned about us recently, you can check them all out there. That's all right. So just coming to an end, we're thinking about, these are sort of soft skills that, in our opinion, well, soft skills and the emergent language, sort of things that separate the humans from the AI, or at least at the moment. Okay. So can AI really replace teachers? In some ways, maybe it can. In some ways, maybe it can help us. But the answer in general is no. Okay. Apps can't really predict and react to spontaneous interaction accurately. So they can't really provide this meaningful and authentic context, words and phrases that can have different meanings based on the situation or the speaker's intention. Now, again, I'm sure we've all had this experience with AI that we write something in, expect it to understand what we've said, and it misinterprets something and comes out with something differently. Obviously, this is not a problem that only computers have or only AI have. Humans have this too, but we have a lot more to deal with when we're interacting with humans. Therefore, so we humans can deal with these subtleties, or deal with misunderstandings, or interpret much more accurately rather than AI. Okay, and as is should be evident that this language is deeply rooted in culture. Okay, so saying something in Australia or even parts of Australia might be different for a way people speak in certain parts of the UK, in Ireland, America, or even as a second language speaker. So these sort of things can really impact the meaning, and therefore, you know, we get to know that we get to know maybe recognizing the accent, maybe recognizing the person themselves and where we find ourselves, and we can sort of start to understand how this is. Okay. Um, and these apps integrate. Now, again, I'm not saying there isn't a place for AI or apps or tech in learning. Okay, but it can integrate. They can integrate these sort of personalized and adaptive learning, but are they really personalized? Okay, so this language learning, language speaking is a social pursuit. So we're not just learning English just to pass an exam. We're learning it so that people can interact, whether it's in business, whether it's in our social life, in online chats, following social media, things like that. But you know, I certainly notice with my students that now that there's so much interaction in apps and TikTok and things like that in English, that they're getting a lot of this and they're using their English in that. So the students who have a lot of connection with social media and stuff like that, I find are the ones who are often the strongest at English. Okay. And teachers, us teachers, we can offer experiences that are beyond complex, experiences that are learner led. Again, you know, uh, apps are very easy, to dominate and sort of lead it, but we want to let the students lead. We can make the lessons or accept the lessons being unpredictable or very creative, emotion driven, inherently unstructured, thought provoking, interdisciplinary, and even more beyond the discipline. So again, these are things that I think we need to really find a role doing this, because maybe the easier parts of our job, or the maybe even the more monotonous parts of our jobs, will be taken over by apps, AI, things like that. But that still leaves us with the more interesting things, as what we've been talking about today. And this is the stuff that I think really um, often got us into teaching, the idea of making a difference in people's lives. And again, what is the power of the human teacher? It's to elicit a conversation, uh, not only on the unanswered, but what we haven't even thought about, what we haven't even questioned yet. Okay? So it's not just that we're asking questions and don't know what the answer is. We don't even know often what the question is, and we can actually provoke the students to lead in that way. Okay, so what we can't expect the AI to know what we haven't asked, whereas people can do that. Okay, and a good teacher knows how to do it really well, I think.
So with this, we're coming to our conclusion already. So, new technology, research, and methods can only provide more opportunities for students wishing to learn English. Let's not be scared of it. As George has clearly explained just a minute ago, technology can probably take off the burden of those tasks that are boring, and then we can actually be teachers for the fun part. And if he's actually encouraging our learners to learn, so be it. And as instructors, um, technology can help us to be better, to better meet our students' needs, while also relieving us from those tedious jobs. So we need to be dynamic and change our methods and aims to adapt to the new world ahead. Um, and just to let you know that our MLA task-based learning methods continues to develop to meet the students' future needs. Future needs like soft skills, emerging language, whatever they're interested in, they're truly student-centered. And we focus on emerging language and develop those skills such as problem solving, teamwork, to prepare them for what authenticity and real life skills are.
And if you're interested in this concept of task-based learning, then we've got several webinars on it. We've talked about it extensively, and not just as a promotion for MLA's methods, but there's certainly things that you can incorporate into your lessons, and I think you'll be able to see how this sort of method, and again, you might not be able to use it every lesson or change the whole course into a task-based learning course, but using it occasionally can really help develop these sort of soft skills and encourage students to come up with this emergent language so that we're really pushing them to be creative, not just in doing tasks, but actually using language in a creative way, in a way that is not just parroting what they've heard during the lesson. Okay. Anyway, thank you for your attention. Oh, someone's just mentioned in the chat that 4 hour course. I'll just let you know that we consider the certificates that you receive are for 4 hours, because when we give you the webinar handout, there's a lot of extra material in it, and websites and things that you can do that we expect you to do to make up for those 4 hours. So even though we have the shorter actual presentation part of this webinar, is followed up with a lot of links and follow-up activities that you can do there. Okay.
You have plenty of homework if you like.
Exactly. Okay. And I wouldn't want to like imply that we are the final word on this. So there's a lot more that you can find out from all the websites and the links I've done research on in this. Thanks a lot for your attention. And as I mentioned, you'll receive a certificate of participation by email. You don't need to uh, ask us for it unless it doesn't come out to you in the next few days. But if it doesn't, send me an email at Formazione, and you'll get it in the next week. And again, all this information and a lot more, including these links, will be in the handout that'll be attached there as well. Next week, we're going to talk about Christmas and New Year's. So we're going to have some Christmas and New Year's activities just in time for the festive season for our second last webinar of the year. And I hope you can join us again. So I'll see you then. Thanks a lot, Ruth, and thanks
Thank
to all
you.
our participants. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Have a lovely evening.